This man cannot remain in power.
Let me start right off by saying that I believe that Ukraine has lost the war. Now, of course, the war is not over, but it is lost. Let me show you why. This has become an artillery duel. Russia fires 50,000 shells a day, 10 times more than Ukraine. The Washington Post says that Ukraine is almost completely out of ammunition, and there are no replacements for its Soviet-era ordnance. On June 10th, the Post reported that Ukraine is suffering 1,000 casualties a day, including 200 killed. The rate of casualties has doubled in just 3 weeks. And Ukraine is losing 6,000 soldiers killed every month. This is a casualty rate 12 times higher than we suffered in Vietnam. On a per capita basis, this means that their casualty rate is roughly 60 times greater than the U.S. suffered during the very bloody war in Vietnam. Ukrainians have fought with courage, but no nation can sustain such casualty rates for long. Ukraine is finished. On June the 12th, yesterday, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg all but admitted that Ukraine would soon be forced to sue for peace. He said, "The only question is, what price are you willing to pay for peace? How much territory, how much independence, how much sovereignty are you willing to sacrifice for peace?" Stoltenberg's remarks suggest that NATO recognizes that the war is lost. It's now become an unpleasant distraction that simply needs to be wrapped up, as far as NATO is concerned. The sanctions war has failed. The entire financial might of the Western world was unleashed against Russia. Today, the ruble is stronger than before the war. This year, it has been the strongest of all currencies. Russian inflation peaked around 15% and is expected to subside. But as their inflation tops out, Europe's and America's has just begun skyrocketing dangerously. Biden's attempt to strangle Russian trade has failed. Despite sanctions, Russia has forged stronger ties with China, India, South Africa, Iran, Brazil, Saudi Arabia. Important countries in the global south are refusing to obey Washington's order to impose sanctions. Independent countries fear the U.S., but they resent being told who they may and may not trade with. Dictating sanction policy to sovereign nations is diminishing the world's respect for America. From the outset of the war, Russians have never experienced shortages of food, housing, heating, fuel, or gasoline. Anyone who expects Russians to crack from the loss of Gucci purchase or Big Mac hamburgers do not understand the Russian psyche. President Putin's popularity rose to 83%, which is greater than any of his Western counterparts. Meanwhile, the propaganda war is unraveling. At the outset of war, the United States unleashed a carefully orchestrated barrage of anti-Russian propaganda. All dissenting voices were blocked from the media. Recently, however, news outlets have begun acknowledging the possibility of a Ukrainian defeat. On June 10th, Newsweek reported that even the deputy head of Ukrainian military intelligence has admitted that Ukraine was at risk of losing the war to Russia. The first cracks are forming, and soon the world must come to grips with reality. The war is lost.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. My name is AJ. That clip you saw today, that was from retired Colonel Richard H. Black. Check him out on YouTube if you haven't done so. But he gives a very, very truthful account of what's happening in Ukraine. And I have to agree with him. The war is lost. Ukraine is killing their own people for no reason. And it's just a real shame. A real shame. So I've got a packed show for you today. Lots to talk about. So I'm going to start off talking about Great Britain. Or shall I say Little Britain. The whole of Britain is in standstill because of these rail strikes, and I'm going to give you my story of my experience in the rail strikes because I wanted to get to work. I could have worked from home, but I wanted to experience what it's like out there, so I went and experienced it, and I'm going to share it with you guys. I'm also going to be talking about Little Chihuahua, obviously Lithuania, but I'm going to call them Little Chihuahua because they are like Chihuahuas barking for their masters. When the master says bark, they are like, ow, ow, ow. They are like barking like a little chihuahua. So I'm going to talk about Little Chihuahua. I'm also going to be talking about how Europe is going into, back into using coal. I'm also going to be talking about China, where US has basically put some regulations where they're going to ban products from Xinjiang. And I'm going to be talking about that. US is effort in decoupling with China. I'm also going to be talking about a couple of idiot of the days today, and I'm also going to be talking about a few other things that's going on around the world. So it's going to be a really packed day. So if I was you, I'd sit down, relax, put your headphones on, or maybe go to the gym, do some jogging, put some headphones on, and just relax and listen to this podcast. I'll promise to try and make it good and enjoyable for you guys. So I had to go to work yesterday, and as you know, the whole country was at a standstill because of the rail strikes. So I got out of my house, I went to obviously my local station, trying to figure out a way to get to work. So I went to the station. There were trains running, but it was one every hour or something. So I went to the platform, and there was thousands and thousands of people in the platform. There was no way I was going to get into that train. So one train came, everyone packed, basically pushed each other in. It was mayhem, absolute mayhem. So that train went, I missed it. Another train came, I missed that one as well. And the third one came, I missed it. So at that point I said, you know what, forget this. I'm going to try and take a cab. So I went out the station and I tried to book an Uber. A normal Uber cost me like £25 to get to work from my house. And I tried to book an Uber, and guess how much the price was? £350. £350, that's more than like 10-15 times the price it takes me normally. It was absolutely ridiculous. So you got all of these taxi drivers, taxi firms taking advantage of the rail strike. Real sickening behavior, to be honest. And then I tried to take a bus, and again there was a huge queue in front of the bus, and people were shoving and pushing and shoving, trying to get in, like their life depended on it. They need to get to work or they're going to get sacked. So people are really pushing in. So I couldn't get into the bus. So I decided to walk to work, and it took me about 2 hours to get to work. I walked it, and it was a nice sunny day. By the time I got to work, I was really sweating and I felt terrible. I needed a shower, to be honest. I couldn't do any work. I was like, I need to. So I told my boss, I can't work. I basically walked for 2 hours. I'm in no state to do any work. I'm gonna go home. And the boss is like, yeah, fine. Thanks for coming. A lot of people could not get to work. I was one of the first that actually got to work, and I walked it there. And a lot of people didn't turn up. And I just wanted to. I could have worked from home, guys, but I just wanted to basically see how long it takes, and I wanted to experience the mayhem. And my God, did I really experience it. That was one of the worst days of my life. So it's happened again. Today was really bad, and it's going to be happening tomorrow as well. So can you imagine the amount of money UK is losing through the economy by all of these trains shut down? I mean, there must be so much mayhem going on. And a lot of people who have booked holidays, they can't get to the airports because the rails are shut down. So a lot of people are missing their flights. So this is only the beginning, guys. It's going to get a lot worse. These are just rail workers who want between 7 and 10% pay rise in line with inflation. And other sectors are planning to strike as well. You have lot post office workers and nurses and doctors, teachers. Every public sector job, they are looking to strike because they can't afford the wages at the moment. With inflation going up and their wages remaining stagnant, there's going to come a point where even if you're working full time, you can't afford to pay for your bills, your mortgage, your food, whether to keep warm. Everything adds up. So you will see a lot more people striking in UK, and this is only the beginning. Imagine the amount of money that Britain is losing through these strikes. It's unbelievable. And Britain, as you know, is not doing very well in terms of its economy, and this is just going to make it much worse. And Boris is on his last legs. And any kind of trouble, any sorts of trouble, Boris just heads off to Ukraine, where he thinks it's safe. He can play He can play Ring a Ring a Roses with his friend Zelensky. He can go to church and pretend to be religious when he's not even religious. And it's an absolute joke, guys. Absolute joke. And I gotta tell you, Boris's days are numbered. The press is now turning on him. And you can see this Guardian article. Someone must tell Britain about the real cost of war in Ukraine. Does Johnson have the authority? So the Guardian is basically blaming Johnson for running away to Ukraine every time it gets tough. He was supposed to meet his constituents up north. He ran away to Ukraine instead to play Ring a Ring a Roses with his mate. And like I said, you know, I think he's got better ambitions. He's looking at Tony Blair and he's looking at how much money he's got. Tony Blair is a billionaire. And Boris Johnson wants a bit of that. Like I said, he's got so many children with other misses, his ex-misses, and he's probably got so much child support payments to pay. He's probably under a lot of debt. So he wants to make as much money as he can before he gets kicked out. So I think he's working for the neocons. And like I said, you know, he's also running off to Ukraine at every single opportunity, but he's also working for the neocons as well, because he knows his days are numbered and he wants to make as much money as he can before he gets sacked or he's basically forced to leave. So this Guardian article is saying that he runs away to Ukraine every time the going gets tough, and he ends up giving away more and more of our money as well. Seriously, like it's his own money to give away. It's not his own money. This is the taxpayers' money. And the only reason this guy still has a job is because there's nobody else to take over. I mean, you look at the candidates. There's hardly anyone good in the British Parliament. I don't know what's happened to the British Parliament. And obviously, when I was a kid, I remember Margaret Thatcher. There were some really good British MPs back in the day. Even George Galloway is a great MP as well. Why can't we have somebody like that? But now you have a bunch of silver spoon twats. You know, basically they've all been to private school. They've never worked hard in their lives. They probably all take some sort of chemical up their nose, powder even. You know, these guys don't know what it's like to be living in real life, what it's like to really live in Britain. They don't know what it's like to really struggle in Britain. You have Rishi Sunak, whose wife is a billionaire, and he doesn't care about what's happening in the economy. As long as his wife is there saving money, that's all he cares about. He doesn't care about the rest of the Britons. Then you have Priti Patel, who's an absolute racist. You know, she's basically, her parents are immigrants to this country, and now she's breaking every single human rights rules in her book or in UK's books to kick out any remaining immigrants out of the country and keep all of the Ukrainians in here. As long as they have blue eyes, blonde hair, she's happy with that. And then you have this Ben Wallace guy who doesn't have a clue what's going on. His whole backbenchers are a bunch of twats. I'm sorry to say, they're all a bunch of twats. You look at Liz Truss. What the hell has happened to British MPs? You know, they've all gone nuts. In fact, I would probably go as far as say a packet of nuts has probably got more intelligence than the whole of the MPs that we have right now. It's absolutely sickening. So I'm going to go back to Lithuania, guys, and it's quite funny actually, and I made a video about Lithuania yesterday and there were so many comments in the comment section. It's absolutely hilarious. If you haven't checked out the comments, you should check it out, because you have a lot of Lithuanians there and you have a lot of brainwashed Westerners as well. Everyone's saying, oh, NATO's going to come to our aid, NATO's going to come to our aid. I mean, how... you know, they're like, oh, you know, Lithuania's not done anything wrong, you know, we're a sovereign country, blah blah blah, you know. And when you have the Western papers, I mean, in Britain, you know, there was papers talking about this could cause World War III, Lithuania is not worth having a war over. And even American papers were like, Lithuania's doing this out of their own accord. We didn't tell Lithuanians to do this. What they're doing is illegal. It's against international law. And even the EU is pointing fingers, saying we didn't tell Lithuania to do this. They're a sovereign country, so they're doing whatever they feel is necessary. And Lithuania is heading back, saying, we're only doing what the EU told us to do. So you have a lot of finger pointing going on, and everyone's pointing fingers at each other. But one thing a lot of Westerners agree on, that this could escalate very, very fast. And I've seen a lot of Western papers who are saying that if Russia actually goes around and invades Lithuania because of this, they would be justified, and America would not be involved, and NATO would not be involved. And those Lithuanians who think that NATO is going to get involved and help them, they really are living in another world. NATO is never going to come and help Lithuania, not in a million years. I don't want to offend any Lithuanian people out there, but you are not worth nuclear war. You are not. And if you look at NATO, NATO is America. America controls NATO. You have all of the weapons in NATO, which is American. Most of NATO is American funded. You have this Stoltenberg guy who's a complete puppet. He follows whatever the Americans tell him to do. So it's up to America if NATO wants to get involved or not. And I guarantee you, America will look at this and they'll say, you know what, it's not worth getting into a nuclear exchange. Lithuania got itself in this mess, so let them get out this mess. We don't want to get involved. America is looking at China. They don't want to get involved in another war, a ground war in the Baltics with Russia, right on Russia's doorstep, especially when Russia is justified in doing this. What Lithuania is doing is against international law. You're stopping goods and services going from Russia to Russia. It's not going to another country. It's going from Russia to Russia. So that's against international law. So with all of this pressure going on around the world, what does Lithuania do? It doubles down. And this is what this article is about. Lithuania expands Kaliningrad blockade. So you know how all of these neocons double down on everything that they do. So whenever these sanctions don't work, what they do is they double down on more sanctions. And this is exactly the kind of neocon thinking and exactly what Lithuania is doing now. They think they are a bunch of neocons. Or basically they are being told what to do by the Americans. So I don't know a lot of Lithuanians. I did used to date a Lithuanian girl back in the day. There seems to be a really, really big community of Lithuanians in London. And she told me once that there is some sort of plaque in the center of Lithuania, in the center of the capital city. And in the plaque it said, those who mess around with Lithuania mess around with us. And it was basically written by George Bush. George Bush actually, Lithuania was one of the first countries supporting George Bush's Iraq invasion. And basically at that time George Bush said, if anyone messes around with Lithuania, messes around with us. And how can you follow a leader who is a bloody tyrant like George Bush? He went in, killed over 1 million Iraqis under the pretense of weapons of mass destruction. There's obviously no weapons of mass destruction there. So killed 1 million people for no reason. And what did the Lithuanians do? They celebrate George Bush by placing his placard in the center of the capital city. And not only that, there are black sites in Lithuania as well. American black sites, which not many people know about. These are Guantanamo Bay type prisons where they keep prisoners in there secretly. And Lithuania is such a puppet of the United States. United States goes to Lithuania, go mess around with China. Go on, go for it, my dog. And guess what they do? One way to piss off the Chinese is to talk about opening a Taiwanese embassy in Lithuania and forgetting about the one China policy, which the whole of the West, and including America, abides with. And Lithuania is going to be the first country in the world which opens a Taiwanese embassy. So what is the point of doing that? What is the point of provoking China? What is the point of provoking Russia and doubling down on all of these blockades? What is the point? Tell me that. A small country like Lithuania. I mean, do you not look at the future? Do you not see where the economy is heading? You know, China's going to be the #1 economy, and Russia's going to be a very, very big superpower right on your doorstep. What is the point of throwing all your eggs into one Western basket when the West is known to double stab its allies? And look what it's doing to Ukraine. Look what it's done to Afghanistan. When America gets bored, it goes into the next toy to play with. That's what's going to happen to Lithuania. That's why I guarantee you, once Ukraine is over and you provoke a war with Russia, NATO will never get involved. Never. Because America controls NATO, and America tells NATO what to do. America tells NATO, go bomb Yugoslavia, NATO will do it. America tells NATO, come help us in Iraq, come help us in Afghanistan, NATO will do it. Even though Iraq and Afghanistan is nowhere near the North Atlantic. Do you know what NATO stands for? North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So where is Iraq? Where is Afghanistan? It's nowhere near the North Atlantic. So America tells NATO exactly who to bomb, what to do, and they will only do it to weak countries. People say Article 5, Article 5. Article 5 is only against weak countries, and it doesn't mean go to war with that country. Article 5 means all of the countries sit together and discuss the next scenario or what to do. And I guarantee you most NATO members will be like, no, we don't want to get involved in a war with Russia. I guarantee you that. So all of you Lithuanians hiding behind your Article 5, you're going to be the next Ukraine, mate. You know, this is exactly the same thing Ukrainians were saying a year ago. They're saying, oh, we're going to join NATO, we're going to join the EU, we're going to have nuclear weapons in our home country pointing towards Russia, and there's nothing Russia can do. NATO will protect us, America will protect us. So where's America now? Where's NATO now? And you might say, oh, Ukraine is not part of NATO. It doesn't matter. NATO has been training Ukrainian troops for years. There's NATO weapons in Ukraine, and NATO is still sending weapons to Ukraine. So don't tell me NATO is not part of Ukraine. Ukraine has been unofficially part of NATO for a long time. And NATO was looking at producing bases around Crimea before Russia took over Crimea. This is why Russia basically sanctioned Russia. And this is why Russia had to take Crimea, because NATO was looking at putting bases in Crimea. Seriously, you Lithuanians, you really need to do your research, and you really need to see what's happening around the world. Just wake up. Just wake up. Don't be another Ukrainian thinking that the West will come and save you. Seriously, guys, get a life. So it's escalating now. As you can see, Putin announces deployment of S-500 air defense systems. So these air defense systems are going along near the Baltic states, and it's also going along the Russian border with Ukraine as well, because something looks like it's going to happen in Lithuania, and Russia is already preparing. So what they're going to do, they're going to prepare all of these S-500s along the border in the Baltic states. They're going to have it along the border with Ukraine. They're probably going to have them in Crimea, probably going to have them near Odessa as well. And if a major conflict breaks out between Lithuania and Russia near Kaliningrad, Russia will be ready with these S-500s. So if NATO decides to bring in any airplanes, they'll be shot out the sky easily. So Russia is already preparing for this, and they wouldn't do this if they wasn't planning something. So if I was Lithuania, I'd be really worried right now to see what will happen. I mean, if it was up to me, I just don't think Russia will do anything right now because they're too occupied with Ukraine. But once they finish with Donbass, once they finish with Odessa, And once they finish with what they wanted to do with Ukraine, I'm pretty sure the next target is going to be a land bridge in Lithuania, and they'll be taking land off Lithuania to link it to Kaliningrad. So be careful, guys, in Lithuania, and don't rely on NATO. Don't think that they're your savior and they will come and save you as part of the Article 5. I guarantee you they will not come. And if there is a conflict happening in Lithuania in maybe 6 months or a year's time, and again NATO doesn't come to help, just remember you saw this YouTube channel and you heard this from me, from the horse's mouth, and then you can come back to me 1 year later and we can discuss things. So now I'm going to talk about all of this woke nonsense going on in the US Navy. And this is why the US Navy is not going to fight the Russians. The Russian army is not woke. They're one of the most effective, toughest land-based army the world has ever known. Hitler couldn't take Russia down. Napoleon couldn't take Russia down. And does the US military think they can take Russia down? Not with this woke merchants. I mean, look at this. US Navy teaches its personnel about gender pronouns. And look at these two. The reason America doesn't want to go to war, because America doesn't have the personnel to fight a war, a major war with Russia. I don't think America's fought a good opponent for years. In the Korean War, maybe they fought a very good opponent. They fought North Korea and China, gave them a really good run for its money. Vietnam gave America a very good run for its money. Apart from that, every other country, America literally bombed those places to death with their air superpower. They've got, you got to give them, air superiority and the technology that America has. And this is why there was no need for America to focus on ground troops, because their superiority was in the air. So all they had to do is do all of these bombing runs from the air, throw some missiles, and that's their war. That's how they've been fighting in Afghanistan. That's how they've been fighting in Iraq. This is where the shock and awe comes in. Bomb and missile the city to smithereens, destroy everything in that city, and then move in with your troops. That's what the Americans have been doing, and it's an easy tactic. It's not going to work with Russia. This tactic is not going to work for a number of reasons. First of all, Russia will take out the GPS. All of these missiles and all of these guided weapons are not going to work, and America will have to go in as a ground-based unit to protect Lithuania if this happens. So this is why US Navy is not going to go in. I just think they are too woke. NATO is also very woke as well. So the US is happy from a distance just watching Ukrainians kill themselves fighting over Ukraine. They will basically fight Russia to the last Ukrainian, and this is how it's looking. I can imagine all of these woke merchants in the US military, if they ever went to a war with Russia. You can imagine these wokesters in the US military, and they're running around in the trenches and with their rainbow badges and things like that, and rainbow coloured helmets, and they're running around in the trenches screaming, saying, "Oh my God, I'm gonna die, oh my God, I want to live, oh, I spent 2 hours doing my nails, I hope my nails don't break, oh my God, is that a bomb? No, it's not a bomb, oh thank God, oh my God, is that an airplane, it's gonna throw a bomb at us. No, it's only a bird. It's a false alarm, guys. Don't worry about it. Okay, let's sit down and meditate. Come on, guys." You can imagine it's going to be like that. It's an absolute comedy show. Absolute comedy show. Then I saw this article as well. Russia claims hundreds of casualties during a strike in Ukraine. As many as 500 Ukrainian troops have died from a single brigade killed in the city of Nikolaev, Defense Ministry have said. They're losing between 500 to 1,000 people a day. Like the retired colonel has said, this war is lost. This war is lost. Ukraine can't win. You got to save the lives of your people, and you got to look at the future of Ukraine, guys. If every single person in Ukraine is killed during this war or injured, What more of Ukrainian people are left? This is real genocide. The West is causing genocide to the Ukrainian people by sending them to their deaths. It's really, really sad, really miserable to think about this. In the meantime, the BRICS is developing a global reserve currency. So the BRIC countries, especially Russia and China, you got India as well. The BRICS countries are more than half the population of the earth. You have 1.4 billion people in China, 1.4 billion in India. You got so many people in Brazil as well. You've got so many people in Russia. These are massive, massive, powerful countries. And if they work out a global reserve currency between them, the US dollar has no chance. No chance. And already a lot of countries are now moving away from the US dollar, and they're already looking at finding ways to not to rely on the US dollar. If your economy is based on the US dollar and you do a lot of trade with US dollar, you are basically suiciding your own economy, because the US can at any point, take away the reserves from your central bank. They can sanction you to death, and that's it. Your economy is crumbled, it's destroyed. If you're not Russia, if you're a small country like Venezuela, Cuba, you are pretty much destroyed. And that's what's been happening all over the world. And you see a lot of countries now moving away from the US dollar. The US dollar is not going to be the world's reserve currency within a year. And I guarantee you, within a year, they'll be gone. It's going to be a slow, gradual thing, but within 1 year, you will see less and less countries using the dollar. Less and less countries will buy oil using dollar as well. You got Saudi Arabia, who's selling oil using Chinese RMB. Obviously, Russia's selling its oil and gas using its ruble. Iran is probably selling oil and gas to China using the Chinese renminbi again. So all of these major countries, and I'm pretty sure I heard somewhere that India is also buying oil and gas from Russia using either their own currency or ruble. So you also, all of these countries, so many countries around the world, even Asian countries as well, they're all moving away from the dollar, because every country has realized you cannot rely on America. You got to look after your own country. You got to build up your own reserves. You cannot have an economy just purely based on the US dollar. And one of these days, if the US department doesn't like you, they can place sanctions on you. They take away all of your reserves from your central banks and destroy your currency. And nobody wants that. So I can see within a year, American dollar losing its reserve currency. The BRICS could be the one option. Other option, it could be a fight between the ruble and the Chinese RMB as well. I say within the next year because we're all going to be heading for a major crash over the next few months. US is already heading into recession. Britain is heading into recession. Europe is pretty much destroyed. Europe is going to be absolutely destroyed. Europe is going to struggle to keep together. And I just don't think the European Union will last a few years. I think they have completely destroyed themselves with these sanctions. But we will see. We'll see what happens. But every single day you can see stories about how the US economy is crumbling, the UK economy is crumbling, the European economy is crumbling. And the economies out there in the world who are not reliant on US economy, they're the ones who will survive. And this is why Russia is a very, very strong candidate for superpower, because they are not reliant on the Western financial system. And this is why all of these Western sanctions has not really worked on Russia. And you will see after the Ukrainian war, the Russians are going to come out of it with a huge amount of confidence. They're going to have an amazing resurgence as a country. They are not based on US dollar, and you will see, because all of these Western companies who have moved out of Russia, Russia will have its own production, own manufacturing. So you will see Russian industry moving up in the world. The Chinese industry and the Chinese economy will also survive. A lot of people saying, oh, Chinese economy based on exports, they're reliant on the dollar, on the euro. Well, used to be like that, but not anymore. You know, recently they are pushing for a dual circulation policy. You got to understand, China has got 1.4 billion people as a population, and most of the people are actually have come out of poverty, move into middle class. They will need the latest, latest phones. I'm talking about latest Chinese phones. They're going to need the latest EV cars. They're going to need the latest gadgets, TVs, IoT devices. So China has a big enough population to survive any financial crash that happens around the world. They don't care if they don't have to export their goods to America or to Europe. You know, they have their own people they can service to. And this is why, you know, people that think that China's economy is going to collapse, all of these people predicting China's economy is going to collapse. For 20 years they've been predicting this, and it hasn't. Because China has a very, very strong dual circulation policy. You know, China makes a lot of money internally. It doesn't need to make money from United States or Europe. And China is moving up in the digital transformation. They've got 5G everywhere. They got AI. You know, they are making so much money from this new digital transformation. And you got companies like Huawei making a profit. This was after, you know, America placed so many sanctions on Huawei, destroyed its phone business, tried to destroy the company itself. But last year's figures, Huawei came back with a profit. And Huawei has restructured its business, and now it's, you know, is very, very good in terms of its digital business, and it's doing a lot in terms of its infrastructure, 5G networks and data centers, and a lot of other stuff that Huawei is doing. So you cannot stop China. America has tried to stop China since the Trump years, and Trump has placed these ridiculous sanctions on China, and it hasn't worked. You know, every single year the trade deficit has gone larger and larger and larger, and it's come to a point now where it's absolutely ridiculous, and the Americans just don't know what to do. You know, they have no clue whatsoever. And I still remember when Trump said back in the day, trade wars are easy to win. Well, they're not easy to win. America's losing the trade war. So recently, Dmitry Peskov has told NBC News that Russia will never ever trust the West again. And he's right. The West has tried to humiliate Russia over and over and over again. They tried to humiliate Russia during the Soviet times, through the end of the Cold War, and still they've tried to humiliate Russia. They didn't let Russia join NATO, and all of these years the EU, the USA just try to humiliate Russia. And why should Russia trust the West ever again? You know, Russia is also part of Europe. Most of Russia is part of Europe. A lot of people seem to think that Russia is not part of Europe. Of course it is. And it's a shame, really, because Russia has huge amounts of national resources, cheap natural resources that Europeans could want and need. I'm talking about gas and oil, which comes through pipelines, and it was so cheap, and it helps European industry to thrive, to be competitive. They're going to lose that now. So what they're going to do? What they're going to do when they lose all that industry and all that cheap gas and cheap oil? What they're going to do? Get it from America, where it costs 10 times more expensive? You know, companies are not going to be able to survive with that kind of costs. They can't. You know, the West or Europe needs Russia more than it needs Ukraine. You know, I think this history will look back, and they will look back at this moment and think, you know what, we made the wrong decision. All they had to do was to promise Russia that NATO would never let in Ukraine as a member. And all that Ukraine had to do was promise Russia they would never join NATO, they would never house NATO weapons and nuclear weapons in its soil, pointing at Russia. That's all they want. That's all Russia wanted. It could have avoided all of this mess. Could have avoided all of this easily. NATO pushed this war, or USA pushed this war. And now they're regretting it. So I'm going to come to my first idiot of the day. I'm going to have two idiots of the day today. And first idiot of the day goes to Ursula von der Leyen, or Ursula von der Leyen, or Ursula von der Crazy, many people would call her. And she's won many of these awards, by the way. She must be the most winnable idiot of the day award. She's won about 6 or 7 of my videos already, and I haven't made that many videos. So she's saying that she has an idea to reduce Russian gas. So she says, if we decrease the heating in Europe by 2 degrees, or the cooling, less air conditioning, this would compensate for the whole delivery from Nord Stream 1, von der Leyen told the Irish Times, referring to the Baltic Sea pipelines that delivers gas from Russia to Germany. So, so her idea is reducing heating by 2 degrees. Okay, so, you know, I just don't see how people are gonna take her advice, because if you're really cold in the winter, and are you really gonna listen to von der Leyen's advice saying, oh, you know what, it's freezing here, but I want to turn on the heating, let me just reduce it by 2 degrees so I'm not too cold but I'm not too hot. I just hope my children don't freeze to death. I mean, seriously, nobody's gonna listen to this bloody piece of advice. This woman is totally dumb, completely bonkers. She's talking about Nord Stream 1. I just want to show you this funny thing here. So Nord Stream 1 is the red pipe you can see, and Nord Stream 2 is the blue pipe. So can someone tell me why the heck did they ban Nord Stream 2? Because all I see is 2 pipes going along the same path, and they're both able to deliver gas. So why can't, if Nord Stream 1 has issues, there's parts that need replacing, apparently there's sanctions, and parts that need to be replacing from Canada, from Siemens. So obviously there's a lot of repairs going on in Nord Stream 1. It's a very, very old pipeline. So this is why they've built Nord Stream 2, so Russia can send more gas into Europe. So why the hell did they ban Nord Stream 2? It just makes no bloody sense. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's the most stupidest thing ever. If you look at this map, you have Nord Stream 1 running in parallel to Nord Stream 2. So if they want to ban Nord Stream 2, why don't they ban both of them, Nord Stream 1 and 2 together? Why did they have to ban 2? It just shows it's all political. They make these decisions not based on logic. They don't even think about it. America tells them ban Nord Stream 2 at all costs, and they do it. This is so stupid. I'm sorry to say. Sorry for the language. Absolutely stupid. So the US wants to cap Russian oil revenues, and it says the Treasury Department says working with allies to create buyers cartel to pay less for Russian crude. I tell you what, mate, this is not going to work. Absolutely not going to work. Russia is already selling lots of its oil revenues to China, to India, to Asia, other parts of the world. They don't even care about the European or the American market anymore. So if America decides to cap Russian oil, and what do you think Russia's going to do? Say, sorry mate, I'm not going to sell it to you. I'll go to the Chinese market and sell it there where I can get a better price. It's like, you know, it's like me having a restaurant, and basically Biden comes in with his daughter on a date. I don't mean in a bad way, but you know, you have to see my last video to realize what I'm actually talking about. So he comes in with his daughter, and he says, okay, I want to order this from the menu, I want to order that from the menu, but I've only got £20 to spend, so give me all of this for £20. That's my budget, that's my cap. So all of this for £20, and I'll just tell Biden to sling your hook, mate. Get the hell out of my restaurant. If you don't have the money to pay, don't, go to another restaurant. Go to McDonald's. Take your daughter to McDonald's. Bloody hell. If they're going to put this cap on Russian oil revenues, it's just not going to work. Russia has the commodity. Russia has the say who wants to sell it to. America thinks that they are the only market in the world. They think they are the only people in the world. This is why you have all of these neocons making all these ridiculous decisions, thinking they can sanction Russia to death. It will destroy the ruble. It will destroy the economy. Look what's happened. It hasn't worked, has it? I just can't believe all of these stupid neocons still think this way. That they can have all of these ridiculous things and think that Russia is stupid enough to fall for their tricks. It's just not going to work. So this funny story here, US Embassy in Moscow is now situated on Donetsk People's Republic Square. So I thought I'd just put this out there. I just thought it was really, really funny. And who says that Russians don't have a sense of humor? And you can see that they obviously do. I just found this absolutely hilarious. Having an embassy right in the Donetsk. Oh, that's so funny. So I've got some bad news, guys. It says basically a lot of countries in the EU, including Germany, Austria, Greece, even Britain, and a lot of other countries are starting to burn a lot of coal again because they don't have the amount of gas available coming from Russia. They're going to go backwards and burn a lot of coal. So all of these promises they made in COP26 and in the Paris Climate Accord, they're going to try and stop all of these coal factories, and they're going to reduce coal usage, and they're going to go carbon neutral by 2030. All of this crap, it's just BS. They're going to be throwing it all out the window, going backwards, going back to burning coal again, which is the dirtiest form of fossil fuels. And then you have this idiot in COP26, this British guy who was the leader of COP26, and he was crying. He's crying at the end. He was saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. I wish I could do more for the world, but I blame China. I blame India. These guys are destroying the world, blah blah blah, but us Europeans, we're doing everything we can. It's the bloody Chinese, it's the bloody Indians that are doing it." He starts crying with his crocodile tears, and absolutely ridiculous. And now Europe is now thinking of going backwards to using coal. How ridiculous is that? How ridiculous is that? And one thing Europe can't do is they can't go to renewables, because last year there was hardly any wind happening in Europe, and there's hardly any sun happening in Europe as well. I mean, I live in Britain, and we only get sun for about 30 days a year. Rest of the year is cloudy or is raining. Even now, even parts of Scotland is still cloudy and raining, and Britain is not a good place to stay, and the rest of Europe is like that, apart from Spain and Italy and places like that, obviously. But that's more towards the Mediterranean, Greece, obviously, and stuff like that. But Northern Europe, there's hardly any sun, hardly any wind, so they can't really focus on renewables. And plus, they don't have the land as well. They don't have the land to focus on renewables as well. Where are they going to have the land? I mean, Britain, there's hardly any land available to put renewables around. There is an offshore wind farm that they're doing. They are obviously building wind farms along the sea, which is an idea as well. But, if you compare to what China's doing, Britain and rest of Europe is so far lagging behind in terms of renewables. It just doesn't have the sun, doesn't have the wind, and it doesn't have the space. And not only that, it doesn't have the rare earth minerals. China controls the world's most rare earth minerals, and when you build these wind power stations and wind and wind power, offshore wind power. These blades, they need certain minerals, and you can only get that from China. You know, Europe doesn't have its own mineral source, so they're going to be struggling to get these renewable sources around Europe, and they're going to be struggling a lot. So only option for them to do looks like it's going back to coal. They can't go nuclear because opening up nuclear plants takes about 10 years or so, and there's obviously question marks on safety and things like that. And especially Germany, who's going back on using a nuclear fuel, so then they're not going to be using nuclear fuel for much longer. And I just don't see any hope for Europe, to be honest, when it comes to energy. You know, the only way they had secure, cheap energy was coming from Russia, coming via these pipelines, and now they've blown that up as well. Absolutely destroyed it. And you can see here, Austria puts green energy transition on hold, but it's not just Austria, it's the rest of Europe, to be honest, guys. It's happening everywhere. So you got another American fighter killed in Ukraine, and I remember they told Biden what's he going to do about it, and Biden just shrugged it off, right? And they asked him, you know, what they're going to do with these dead American soldiers, and Biden just shrugged it off, and he says, look, we're not taking any responsibility. We told American citizens not to travel to Ukraine. They went out of their own accord, so it's nothing to do with us. So Biden doesn't really give a crap whether you're an American, whether you're an Afghani. Doesn't even care about Ukrainians, guys. And if you think that he really cares about you, it's all fake. Doesn't even care about his own, you know, Americans. So it's a shame, really. It's a shame all of these people are going to Ukraine to their deaths. You know, this isn't Afghanistan. This isn't Call of Duty. This isn't Iraq. You know, you're fighting a real army here. So like I said, Russia becomes China's top supplier, and it's going to carry on becoming China's top supplier. There's already infrastructure projects happening all over China and Russia to link the two countries together even more. Last week they built a bridge going from Russia to China and vice versa, and there's a lot more infrastructure projects happening between the two. There's a lot of rail links as part of the BRI going from China through Russia into Europe, and there's a lot more rail links in construction as well, high-speed rail links as well. And these two countries are becoming very much interconnected. The West has basically pushed China and Russia together, and now they are inseparable partners. Every year the trade becomes more and more between China and Russia. There's also a growing agricultural market coming out of Russia as well, which they're going to be selling to China. China originally used to buy a lot of agricultural goods from America, from USA, and now things are changing. They are diversifying. It's not worth buying it from America anymore because America has put all these ridiculous tariffs. And year by year, China is buying less and less from United States because of all these ridiculous tariffs. America still buys Chinese goods, even with the tariffs. China's goods are still cheaper than if America builds it on it by itself. For example, if you build an iPhone in America, an iPhone would be 3-4 times more expensive if it's built in America. This is why iPhones are built in China, in India, Vietnam, because it's so much cheaper. And this is why Americans still rely on cheap Chinese goods coming out of China. China is not just cheap goods, but China also makes a lot of high-tech stuff as well. They also build their own chips, and they build a lot of high-tech equipment. They have their own phones. So there's a lot of high-tech stuff coming out of China. It's still cheaper than if you build it in America or Europe. America needs China more than what China needs America. Let's put it that way. China is diversifying everything that it buys from America. If you look at last few years' trade figures, the things that China used to buy the most from America used to be Boeing airplanes. They don't do that anymore. China has got its own airplanes now. The A919 C919, I mean. And China also buys a lot of agricultural goods from America. That's becoming less and less. They're buying more agricultural goods now from Russia. China also buys a lot of LNG from America as well. And again, China is diversifying that. Russia is building 3 pipelines of gas going into China. So once those pipelines are finished, China won't need LNG products as much. So that's going to be going down over the next few years. China does buy a lot of soybeans from America. And again, China is diversifying it as well. They're buying a lot more soybeans from Brazil, from Argentina instead, and also from Russia. So they are diversifying that as well. And Americans' crop this year hasn't been very good. They're suffering from a lot of drought. The western part of America is suffering from severe drought. You have the Lake Mead, Lake Powell, and the Colorado River going down. And this means they have placed limits on farmers basically using that water for agricultural goods. So the farmers are not getting enough water for their crops. So there's a huge issue in terms of agriculture in America, and that's going down every year. So there's a lot of problems, but obviously I need to talk about it on a separate video. That's a huge topic. So I'm going to continue, guys. So the US has recently, I think it was yesterday, they put a rule where they have banned any goods coming out of Xinjiang. So so they have placed that rule, even though there's no forced labor, there's no evidence of forced labor happening in Xinjiang. And China's doing everything it can to help the people of Xinjiang. And so many hundreds and thousands of people have come out of poverty in Xinjiang, and China spent a lot of money in Xinjiang. And I think about 10-20 years ago, there was huge terrorism attacks in Xinjiang, and China has done a lot of work to kind of reduce those terrorism. They put a lot of money into Xinjiang. They have built up the infrastructure, built up all of the businesses around Xinjiang as well, the BRI scheme. And the whole area now is really booming. You know, it's really booming. There's a huge cotton industry in Xinjiang. They also sell a lot of solar panels and polysolar panels as well. So there's a lot of stuff happening around Xinjiang as well, which and it's also cheap as well for them to build factories, rather than building in Shanghai or Beijing, where it's very expensive. The rent is expensive. So a lot of businesses have factories and offices in Xinjiang, and they employ a lot of the local people. A lot of the Uyghurs, they employ them because they are cheap labor. But it's not forced labor like Americans are saying. This is all a big lie. This is cheap labor. They're giving the people jobs. They're building the economy around Xinjiang as well. So China is doing everything they can to improve the lives of people in Xinjiang. But America decided, they're not happy with that. They want to basically get more terrorism in the area. They want the people to be impoverished. They want people to go back into poverty. So this is America's way to kind of keep Xinjiang down, and it's just not going to work. So this is an article which I've seen in the Global Times, and what China is saying is make Xinjiang indispensable in the international supply chain. So basically what China is saying is the world is moving towards green technology. So they need solar panels, they need wind turbines. And China controls 90% of the rare earth minerals around the world, and he also controls a lot of how the solar panel products are made. And they're all made in Xinjiang, and they also the blades around the wind turbines as well. So what China is saying is, if the world wants to go green, if the Western world wants to go green, if Europe wants to go green, if Biden wants to go green, if they need more solar panels, for example, or if they need more wind turbines for wind power, they will need to buy from China because it's much cheaper. I mean, they can make it themselves, but it's going to be so expensive, and it's not going to be cost effective. For example, America has built this massive solar farm in California. They spent billions in this solar farm, and end of the day the company went bankrupt and went bust, and they're not using that solar farm, and it's just a waste of money, because they built all of these solar panels from locally produced companies, and in the end it just didn't make it cost effective. So if the world wants to go green, if America wants to go green, they will have to work with China to buy all of these cheap solar panels, buy all of these wind turbines that China controls, and that's the only way they can go green and make it cost effective. They can't put all of these ridiculous sanctions onto China, messing around with the supply chains. And you know, the world's supply chain is a very, very delicate thing. If you think about the supply chain, it's like a well-oiled engine. Think about it like an aircraft engine. You know, the aircraft engine requires over between 10,000 and 50,000 individual units. An airplane engine has. You know, it has a lot of blades and things like that. If one of these units breaks, then the whole thing will break. It's just not going to work. You know, every single thing has to basically work with clockwork. Everything has to work alongside each other. And if you mess up one thing, it could destroy the whole engine. And it's the same way with the supply chain. If you start messing about with the supply chain, then it will destroy the whole supply chain. It will destroy the whole economy, because that's how it works. And it all started with the Trump trade wars. If you think about it, before Trump, there was none of these issues with the supply chains. There was no issues with the economy. There was no issues with anything really. There was no kind of shortage of computer chips and semiconductors. You know, since Trump placed all of these ridiculous sanctions on China, started this trade war, that's when the whole world economy problems started happening. And Biden came on and he doubled down on all of his policies, and it's just made things much worse. And now you have, you know, now you see what's happening around the world, and it's all because of that trade war. It all started from there, and it's just Biden has just made it even worse. And now with this ridiculous rule, he's going to make it even worse. His green transition is not going to work. He can't buy things from China like solar panels, from like wind turbines. China's going to say, well, they're made in Xinjiang, so what are you going to do? You're going to ban us? And China doesn't need to sell it to America. You know, they have their own green agenda. You know, this year China's going to spend over $1 trillion, or probably even more, on more solar panels, more solar farms around China. They're going to build more wind turbines around China. Because of all of these economic issues, China's going to be spending a lot of money in infrastructure, and most of it is in renewable energy. And China is leading the world in renewable energy, so they don't need to sell all of these products to America. They don't need to sell it to Europe. If America or Europe wants them, then yeah, you can buy it, but they don't need it. You have India buying a lot of this stuff as well. You have the rest of Asia buying a lot of this stuff, because Asia right now is the fastest growing block in the world at the moment. You have places like Indonesia, you have Vietnam, you have even Laos, you have Cambodia, you have Thailand, you have Philippines. All of these economies are booming. They're all booming. They're going to all need solar panels. They're going to need wind power to move into renewables. You have India, you have South Asia, you have Bangladesh, you have Pakistan. They're going to need to go green. So China doesn't need to sell it to America, doesn't need to sell to the West. They have enough customers. They have enough customers for themselves, and they have enough customers for their regional partners in Asia. So they don't need to sell to America. They can just stick their fingers up to America, say, you know what, you want to decouple from us? Go ahead. You're just shooting yourself in the foot. And President Xi came on a television broadcast, and he says those who choose to block others are only blocking themselves. And he was obviously talking about America. and that's that's what they've done with Russia, with all of these ridiculous sanctions, and now they're doing it the same with China as well. So those were his own words. Those who look to block others are only blocking themselves. So I'm coming up to my idiot of the day, my second idiot of the day, and my second idiot of the day has to go to Ben Stiller. And Ben Stiller met Zelensky, and he basically told Zelensky, "You're my hero." Oh my god, it's such a shame, because I used to love Ben Stiller. He used to be my favorite comedian, and I watched him in so many funny movies. Zoolander was amazing. Something About Mary. He's been in so many amazing comedy shows. He made me laugh so many times. Some of his films I watched 10, 15, 20 times. This guy is like a hero of mine. But now looking at him, he's just a joke. I mean, how can he call Zelensky his hero? I mean, this and a lot of people don't realize Ben Stiller is actually a Jew. So basically Zelensky is basically, he's obviously running all of these Azov militants, and everyone knows there's a big Nazi problem in Ukraine, and Zelensky is basically the leader of all of these Nazis and stuff. And Ben Stiller, who's a Jew himself, his parents have been in the Holocaust, is now meeting Zelensky and basically saying, "You're my hero," when Zelensky is actively supporting all these Nazi groups and Azovs. And I just found it absolutely ridiculous. This is why he goes to my second idiot of the day, which is a shame, really, because I liked Ben Stiller, and it's a shame he's not my hero anymore. Anyway, that's all for today. Let me know what you guys think. Look forward to reading your comments in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, do what you can to help promote the channel. And also, if you can support me on Patreon, that'll be amazing, really amazing. And if you can also buy me a coffee as well. And one other thing, guys, I'm looking to start up doing some live chats, and I want to ask my Patreon members if anybody would be interested in joining me for some live discussions. I want to kind of get this live chat thing started. I think one of the things, I'm good at making these videos, but I think I really need to get moving in the live chat department. A lot of channels like the Duran and stuff, they're very, very good with their live chats and stuff. But I really have not made an impact. I haven't really focused on live chats, mainly because I work full time. So it's very, very hard to find the time to do live chats. What I do is I come home from work, get something to eat, go to the gym, and then I try and work on a video. And then I watch some TV, spend some time with the missus, then go to sleep, and it's the same again the next day. So I find it very, very difficult to organize any live chats during that time. So what I'm going to do is maybe focus on live chats now. I want to get started, so I'm looking for people I can have a intelligent conversation with. So I'm looking at you Patreon members. So if you're a Patreon member, please message me on my Patreon. And let's try and organize a live chat between us, and we can all kind of come in and talk about the latest geopolitics. So I'm looking at maybe 1 or 2 people in the beginning. Let's try and keep it small. And maybe what I'll do is every week I'll juggle it around and change things around, so everyone gets a say, everyone gets a turn in doing some live chats with me. And once I get moving on my live chats, once obviously start making a start, then I can invite other famous people. I can invite people like Scott Ritter, even the Duran, and other famous people around YouTube. Start doing that. So I want to kind of start doing that now. I think for too long I've just been focusing on doing videos rather than doing live chats. So I want to kind of move on and try and get to the next stage. So I need your help, guys. So if you're welcome to join me in my live chats and stuff. So let's kind of get things moving. Let's try and arrange a date. But in the beginning, let's just send me a message to see if you are interested or not. So anyway, take care for now, and I'll see you soon. See you in the next video. Bye bye.